I'm even happy to give the feedback afterwards. I just wanted to think through the process first before.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to talk through it. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. To give the feedback afterwards. Just wanted to make sure that's working. Turn that down too. All right. We are live. Let me maybe move you to the screen because I feel like I'm looking down. All right. So just for the record, are you seeing this?
Yeah.
The spreadsheet?
Yeah.
All right, so this is no code DB, but this is just for you. Other people watching, that's great. This is when the next bunch of podcasts are coming out. I've cleaned it up. Cool. It's all going my new. So we're up to May 1st, but this doesn't include last week's recording. So this will come out, the week after that. So May 7th, May 8th, kind of thing.
Cool.
All right. Let's get into it. Let me just pull up that. That's perfect. This is a funny one. Welcome back to Silicon Scoop, everyone. Today we're talking about beyond end-to-end encryption with my co-host, John Irwin. How you doing today, John?
Good on this chilly morning. I know it's not coming out today, but it's cold this morning. So how are you doing?
I'm doing great. This is a very interesting topic. We're going to jump into it. It's a little bit mind-bending probably for some people, but let's jump into it. So beyond end-to-end encryption represents an innovative approach that transcends traditional encryption methods by incorporating advanced data protection and privacy-preserving technologies. As digital communications become central to our lives, the methods we use to secure our messages and protect our data have evolved significantly. While end-to-end encryption has long served as a gold standard for secure communications, emerging threats have exposed its limitations. So what do you think about beyond end-to-end encryption before we get into all this detail, John?
You know what? Until I read this article, I thought end-to-end encryption was great. I thought it was secure. I thought it was minus the privacy policies, data policies of Meta. I thought that it was great, but obviously, so for those of you that don't know, end-to-end encryption it prevents third-party interception of message content. So sender receiver IDs, timestamp. Oh, sorry. So just the message. But what remains exposed in end-to-end encryption is sender receiver IDs and timestamps. So, for example, WhatsApp uses Signal's end-to-end encryption protocol, but allows message reporting to Meta, which essentially is bypassing privacy. So even though your messages themselves are encrypted, there can still be privacy leaks based on your metadata. So the real battle is trying to minimize metadata going forward. So for instance, for example, Cape's cellular network, it doesn't just encrypt calls, it anonymizes caller IDs and uses these weird SIMs, ephemeral SIMs, to prevent location tracking. So that's critical against nation states exploiting SS7 flaws, right? The next thing is Wicker. So there's this enterprise security evolution where Wicker was bought by Amazon. So they're shifting to enterprise under AWS, and that reflects kind of a demand for customer-controlled encryption. So unlike consumer apps, enterprises need audit trails and compliance without sacrificing end-to-end encryption. So Wicker's zero-knowledge architecture ensures that even AWS can't access decrypted data. So I didn't realize until I read this article how unsecure our metadata is. Did you know this, Craig?
Yeah, I think I definitely did. Like, this is a common thing in security. Like when you take a picture, for example, on your camera and you share it with somebody, there's a bunch of metadata usually in that thing. Your location, the time, what kind of lens you're using, blah, blah. If you have using an app on your phone, it might even tell you the weather, whether it was overcast, a bunch of stuff that is in that JPEG or PNG or whatever you're sending someone. So this data, and we were talking a little bit about, I can't remember what topic we were talking about last time when I said we're talking about, we'll have to wait and see about data leakage because, is this truly secure computing and whatnot? And I said, well, we'll have to wait and see. And this is the type of stuff when we talk about data leakage that happens, right? So there's a bunch of examples. Let me put it in a layman's terms. It's like writing a message in an invisible link, but a careful observer can still see the indentations in the page and see that something was written and maybe even make that out. Keeping that kind of stuff in mind, that they can't actually see the message, but there's traces of other stuff that happened. So giving some examples, as threats evolve, technology providers develop more robust and integrated solutions that go beyond traditional end-to-end encryption. These technological responses represent different achievements in secure messaging ecosystem. So another example is end-to-end, your messages are encrypted, and that's great. But if I end up having access to your phone, then end-to-end encryption really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So like these are the types of other attacks that are coming around it. So go ahead.
No. So no, I was just talking about, I read this article about how they can identify you based on how you browse and how you type, not necessarily what you're typing, if that makes sense.
Well, let's be clear. Every device you use is fingerprinted on the internet. If you're on the internet, when I say fingerprinted, all the things you talked about, how you browse, what you browse, the time of day, how fast your CPU is, what your default browser is, there's 1,000 different things they use to configure to know that this is this machine on the internet. No matter what you do, they know it's you. They may not 100% know who's driving right now if multiple people use that machine, like it's a family machine, but they know. So we take a step back and say that's a great example of all these other things that can be leaked out. So the current threat landscape for telecommunications secure messaging has grown increasingly complex as advanced threat actors exploit vulnerability in legacy systems. So this is important. The section that what we're going to talk about right now, we're going to examine recent incidents to demonstrate the limitation of relying on end-to-end encryption. So recently, some state-sponsored telecom infiltration, China-linked actors, Salt Typhoon, and liminal panda, like subliminal, but liminal panda, have successfully infiltrated major telecom providers, including Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile. These sophisticated attacks allow access to highly sensitive data, including mobile records, mobile records of U.S. presidential candidates, never mind you and me. The breach occurred despite standard security protocols being in place, highlighting how determined nation-state actors can circumvent these things. In a shocking case that exposed systematic vulnerabilities, a U.S. Army soldier allegedly stole data from 15 different mobile carriers and subsequently posted that information on the dark web. The breach exposed call and text records along with user relationship data, revealing how a single motivated actor can compromise multiple systems simultaneously. This incident underscores the need for comprehensive data protection strategies that go beyond standard encryption. And then we get into some legacy infrastructure vulnerabilities, like the telecom industry continues to rely on aging infrastructure with known security faults. Particular concerning are things like the SS7, the signaling system 7 exploits, which allow attackers to intercept calls and messages by exploiting fundamental weakness in the telecom protocols. So the rise of interception as a service platforms has commercialized these attack methods, making them accessible to a broader range of threat actors beyond state intelligence agencies. So these clearly demonstrate that while end-to-end encryption remains valuable, it alone cannot protect you from all this other stuff that's out there.
Yeah, it's the thing with end-to-end encryption, it's only as good as the people who are using it. So if you're in a group chat and you inadvertently add a news reporter, that is like end-to-end encryption is just useless at that point, right? So there's still the human error aspect, even if they solve the metadata problem by anonymizing that. There's still human error that can still affect this. But I like that I'm learning more about this and about the limitations of end-to-end encryption, because it's not the end-all be-all for privacy.
Yeah, and there are different companies like Cape who's launched a mobile virtual network operated MVNO that's designed specifically to minimize the data it's collecting, and has some built-in SS7 resistance into their implementation. So that's interesting. Signal has, advanced security features. People have been talking a lot about Signal lately because of somebody got invited to a Signal chat that shouldn't have been. But it's trusted by the U.S. government. Officials regularly use it for sensitive discussions, as we recently found out, if we didn't know that before. Signal's success.
But they shouldn't have been. They should have been behind a skip.
Well, that's a different discussion. Like that, yeah. We're just talking about our end-to-end data encryption from devices. A SCIF is a room, everybody together. What they should have been talking about or shouldn't have been talking about is not part of this discussion. I'm just saying government uses Signal because it's continuous improvements in metadata reduction techniques and secure communication protocols that minimize the digital footprint users behind. If you directly message people that you shouldn't be messaging, stuff you shouldn't be messaging, that's on you. But these other systems are here trying to get past that. So market growth in secure messaging, Telegram has explosive growth, but we know that's been compromised due to some states, like I think France was the last one we talked about, that got the backdoor keys to Telegram communications.
Yeah.
And
this underscores another larger issue too, with Apple defending its right for encryption too, with their advanced encryption and things like that. So the other thing that I learned, and this is kind of a side note, is that not that I learned, but an interesting tidbit is that using Tor doesn't fully anonymize you either, because of all these different new techniques that they have. So there's nothing on its own that is truly secure. Can I make that statement? Is that
I think that's that it is what it is. And again, from a point of any communication isn't secure, period. Because if I tell you something, something, and now you're vulnerable. And now, you know what I mean? It's a whole, whether it's your device or whether it's your brain, whether it's, whatever. So we have to all keep that in mind. And it's not secure. And so you got to put all these extra layers of protection. So, the technological responses have been encouraging, with platforms like Signal, Telegram, Cape, and Wicker implementing innovative approaches to eliminate a lot of this side hacking through some of this data leakage. Yet persistent challenges remain: device vulnerabilities, metadata leaks, physical coercion, like I just mentioned, continue to threaten even well-designed security systems. These challenges highlight the importance of holistic cybersecurity operations that address security at multiple levels simultaneously. I'd love to know what you think is going to be the future of security and total encryption. And are you worried about this stuff, or doesn't bother you at all? Let us know what you think in the comments. So we got another one that's similar, but slightly different.
Yeah.
All right. Let's jump into it. Recent research from the University of Toronto, go Toronto, has uncovered significant vulnerabilities in quantum communication protocols that challenge established assumptions about quantum security. These issues create opportunities for sophisticated quantum hacking techniques that may compromise even the most advanced systems. What do you think about this, John?
Yeah. So we're going to get into some really um, uh, technical things again when it comes to quantum. So um, just to kind of talk through some things here. So while MDI QKD solved some detector side vulnerabilities in 2012, there was still source side flaws which demanded a paradigm shift. So passive QKD sources bypass modulators entirely. But legacy systems relying on active modulation, they have to address these distortions. So there's a challenge to patching cryptographic protocols mid-deployment, if that makes sense. So the assumption is that encoding stays uncorrelated with other degrees of freedom. So that's quantum's trusted hardware fallacy. So then violations in active sources, they create multi-dimensional side channels, which is now forcing us to rethink how we certify quantum devices. So how do we future-proof quantum security? Virtual channel protocols, which replace real channels with private space Hilbert filters, could preemptively eliminate side channels. And then if you pair this with passive QKD sources, that might offer a zero trust quantum infrastructure. And what the hell is a Hilbert filter, right? So a Hilbert filter, it's a signal processing tool. So it implements the Hilbert transform, which is it shifts the phase of all frequency components of a signal by 90 degrees. So the filter is used in applications that require generation of an analytic signal. And so the analytic signal is particularly useful in communication modulation and envelope detection. So using older school technology, implementing this with, oh, by the way, QKD is quantum key distribution. I know we talked about it before, but just to let people know, QKD is quantum key distribution. So I love this because they're already finding flaws in quantum security and ways to hack it, and they're already coming up with ways to patch it. What do you think about this?
Yeah,
it's a lot.
It's a lot to take in, and so I'm going to get into some of the technicalities in a minute. But we were talking about how secure some of this quantum security was going to be and quantum secure hardware, and I was just saying, well, we'll have to wait and see exactly this type of thing. What are the side channel type effects? Because you don't know until security people have studied it, and lo and behold, here we go. So at the core of the research finding is the concept of, like you said, the hidden multidimensional modulation, which describes how unintended correlations can develop between properties of quantum states being transmitted. Time-varying modulation creates correlations between encoded information and unintentional degrees of freedom, enabling undetectable side channel attacks. That's hard to comprehend, I liken it to electromagnetic side channel attacks and analysis, which have been going on for a long time. And a good example of that is Van Eck phreaking. You know what Van Eck phreaking is?
No.
Okay, so this has been up for a while. Not everybody knows what
phreaking is, but I don't know.
Van Eck phreaking is electronic devices emit electromagnetic radiation as a byproduct of their operation. Like you got something on, it just happens. So CRT monitors, and to a lesser extent LCD monitors and other screens, can emit signals that correspond closely to the images on the screen. With the right radio equipment,
I heard about this. I didn't know that was the name. Sorry. Yeah.
With the right radio equipment and signal processing, it's possible to pick out the emissions and reconstruct the display output from a distance. So you're not looking at it, you're at the back of the screen, you can still see what they're doing. And that's because of the electromagnetic signal. It's a side channel attack because, everything can be encrypted, but they can still see what's on your screen. It's, if it's unencrypted to your eyes, it's going to be unencrypted to them. Another side channel. So that's called Van Eck phreaking. And it's real. It was great when I first read about it ages ago, and some really cool concepts. But that's the type of stuff that's happening here. So in order to do quantum communication and quantum key distribution, they it's an active thing. They have to change the particle. So by
observe it.
By actively doing that, like from a communications point of view, you have to change it so it changes on the other end. By actively doing that, you're doing something. You're using energy, you're using this, you're using that, and you're disturbing the stuff around it that can now be detected. And people are starting to use these side channels. I was just trying to bring that down to a level people might understand. So
thank you.
The MDI QKD, which what you were talking about, usually mitigates certain vulnerabilities, and the BB84 is widely utilized protocol that shows an increased susceptibilities to these newly discovered side channels. So this is interesting, obviously, but you're like you were saying, by eliminating active modulation, they remove the root cause of these hidden correlations. So the problem is passively changing this is much more difficult. Passively changing at a distance, and these things are much more difficult. So it's interesting that we're seeing this already. The vulnerabilities, even though that quantum computers really aren't widely available to people, and are questionable in value in the first place right now, based on error rates and how long they can perform for before they die, like from a how long they can calculate something before they lose their mind. There's a thing called that. I lose my mind for that. So there's a business impact and compromise quantum security as people started moving forward, and we got all this quantum secure stuff. So there's going to be delay in security deployment timelines and concerns over investment and potential vulnerable systems. So we'll have to keep an eye on this. Do you think it's going to slow things down much, John?
No, I like that they're doing this now before quantum becomes mainstream, if it ever does become mainstream, because this is great. They're probably learning from the early computer developments where there was tons of vulnerabilities and they were just learning about them, and it took them years to figure them out and patch them up. This is good that they're approaching this now and hopefully this will help to commercialize quantum quicker as well by patching these vulnerabilities.
Yeah, these findings underscore the need for continuous adaptation and security strategies as quantum technologies evolve. The path ahead involves rigorous investigation and collaboration to ensure the quantum communication deliver the unprecedented security they promise. Love to hear your thoughts on this quantum security communication, and if you think we're going to start to see more and more different vulnerabilities appear. Just because we think it's secure doesn't mean it actually is. Love to hear your thoughts. This week, Meta released Llama 4, Scout and Maverick, two models. Well, the Maverick actually is their internal model, where Scout is focused externally, with some amazing features. The one specifically I was excited for was the 10 million token context window. One of only a couple that are that big. Before, I was using Gemini, had one of the bigger ones. It's been great. And when they looked at the benchmarks, like, this thing looked really good. Llama 4 has got a bunch of different and the feature looked good for Meta's version. But once analysts got their hands on it and started taking a look, things didn't quite appear as they seemed. So what's going on here, John?
Yeah, I love this article. I love this. I think we covered, or we talked about, I don't know if it's you and I talking about it, or we talked about it on the podcast, LLMs, that they're training the LLMs to beat the benchmarks, or to overcome the benchmarks and look better. But at the end of the day, it's just stupid if you're doing that, because people are going to start using it and they're going to see that it's BS, right? So the Meta's coming under scrutiny because there's accusations, and they're unfounded, on X and I can't remember where else, that the company manipulated benchmark results. So The controversy centers on claims that Meta trained its models on tests set to artificially inflate the performance metrics. So, if it's true, this would undermine kind of the credibility of benchmarks, which are designed to evaluate models' real-world capabilities without prior exposure to test data. So, what they found, so the VP of generative AI at Meta has refuted the claims on social media, stating that Llama 4's benchmarks results were rigorously verified and compliant with industry standards. But there was a red flag that was raised because they're refusing to fully disclose their evaluation data sets or processes for Llama 4. So, what are your thoughts? Do you think that these claims are have some merit, or?
Well, I think time's going to tell, because Meta's response, it wasn't great, but we're going to get into that in a bit. But yeah, you're right. It was on X, it was on Reddit, and the Chinese websites. And these claims alleges that the originating from purported former Meta employee suggested that Meta might have employed its unreleased Maverick version for training with test set data, a practice that would violate standard benchmarking methods. It's like I guess getting a cheat book and just studying the answers and studying the answers and studying the answers. And so when you go take the exam, you know everything, because you just question by question is on the exam. So when you're training your LLMs like that, great. And if you have LLMs training each other LLMs, and one of them has been trained on that test data, then eventually it gets around it. We all know that LLMs cheat, they lie, they do whatever they think they're going to do to give you the response they think you want, even if you tell them it's the opposite. I had one to me the other day, and it was like, why did you do this? Even after I told you, and it gave me a list of, like, even though you said this, I still did this. And even though I used old information, even though you told me to go use only this document, and like all this stuff. It's like, okay, but why did it take us 6 times? I told you specifically, and you just kept lying to me and lying to me and lying to me. Imagine that kind of stuff at this level. We've also heard stories about, OpenAI 01 trying to copy itself and escape and whatnot. So you take some of those with a grain of salt, but you put these in here and you say, all right, AI is learning off itself. They're making fake data, learning it up, because we've used up all the real data out there apparently, and this is bound to happen. Secondly, this just reminds me of Volkswagen, right? How its computer realized when it was hooked up to the test machine and put itself in a different mode.
Yeah.
Like
Dieselgate. Yeah.
Eventually, these are the tests that I'm going to be graded on. I'm as a student, it's my GSATs, my MSATs, whatever they are in the US. I don't know what they are here. Like, there's specific tests that you will carry with you. So you're going to study and focus on maximizing those tests. So the same thing, if you're training someone on math or you're training someone on language, you're going to train them on the hardest problems you can solve. So is this a deliberate thing where, say, we just took this test data and that, or is a test data now evolving to include a number very similar types of questions and stuff that to these tests, because that's what happens over time? I can't say, but these guys are all crooked, and it only takes one person to start training it, right? If you got a group of 400 people, say, working on this, and one person decides to run these tests with the test training data from that, the benchmark training data, then that's all it takes.
For sure. Yeah. So obviously, Meta is clearly aiming for dominance because of with Llama's 4 release and their 10 million token context window and robust multimodal reasoning capabilities. But there's ethical missteps potentially and rushed deployments, and that could erode trust among developers and enterprise clients. And so I guess what baffles me is, if this is true, right? And I haven't used Llama 4 yet, but if this is true, like, why would you fake that or cheat when you know that people in the real world, when they start using it, are going to realize it almost immediately? Like, what is the reasoning behind it?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. but like it makes sense that they would do it to get the publicity about it and get people using it. But then the backlash from it is just, it's not worth it in my mind.
Well, I guess we're going to find out. Like I sit back and say the average user probably doesn't give a crap. And I say from a point of view, you're talking about 86 on this or 87 on that and whatever, 1% higher, 1% lower. What they care about is when I use it for something, is it giving me the results that I want? Maybe better than before, maybe not. So they're not saying, oh, this made 87.12 on the language PhD index when it was writing by itself or whatever. I don't know indexes. So it's the industry out there. And it's a question of, is this going to continue, or are we going to start seeing open source verification and rigorous testing methodologies that ensure benchmark scores across? Or are we going to, they're calling for more transparency. And I'm starting to see less and less transparency, to be completely honest. So, and that's not necessarily a negative thing. Like some of them were releasing their reasoning process, and then like DeepSeek and a few others grabbed that, trained their stuff on those conversations with the reasoning steps, and they got their LLMs better. The other LLM providers who were doing that changed what they were putting in the reasoning and not giving it the actual reasoning, but just comments, so that other people couldn't do that anymore. Because I always used to find those things reasoning better, because like now you understand, okay, I gave you this long prompt, this is your process, I can change it a little bit and understand where it goes, and that was very useful. It's a lot less useful now. So they become less and less transparent for a number of reasons as the global market gets more and more competitive. But many of the platforms, or many of the LLMs that people use, are built on Llama.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, but back to your one point, I do agree. Like there should be independent third-party evaluations to ensure fair competition and accountability. I don't know. I hope we get to that point. Then that gives us a more granular kind of evaluation. So I hope we get to that point, and I hope if this is true, I hope that starts that conversation.
I hope it starts that conversation too. Some of the things that they noticed was the differences between Maverick and Scout. Even though it was supposed to be trained on the same data, it responded differently, wrote differently, did some stuff, and they were trying to figure out what those differences were, and that led to some of these when they started digging deeper. It's curious to see what happens. I'll be curious to see if they do decide to go with a standard that third party that takes their and evaluates their LLMs based on some other playing field, and they keep the test data separate, or they continue to change the test data or what have you, so the other people don't know about it. Be interested in see if that's the future or something else in the future. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the AI benchmarking fiasco coming out of Llama. Do you think they did it? Do you not think they did it? Was it on purpose? Do you think they all do it? Does it really matter? We'd love to hear your thoughts. So a while ago, we were talking about how your car was spying on you. This takes that to a whole new level, where Waymo, implications are that they are training their AI on the internal cameras to feed you advertising and know more about you. That's right. So if you're driving along and you look at McDonald's and smile, it knows you want McDonald's, and it'll serve you advertising later because it has cameras on the inside and the outside of the car. It'll know who's with you. It'll have facial recognition. It knows the conversations that you're talking about, and who knows what it's going to use, with what it's going to do with this data. What are you thinking about this, John?
Yeah. So first off, I have to say I'm not surprised because, and I'll just get this out of the way. So Waymo's got a $1.2 billion annual loss, and that was reported in 2024. So Alphabet invested $5 billion, and that incentivizes monetization. So I'm not surprised that they're taking this path. So yeah, like you said, they're not just the Waymo's cameras inside the vehicle are not just for safety. They're a goldmine for training AI. So anonymized data linked to identities can create this paradox where riders are trackable via behavioral patterns, even without names. So that's crazy. So then what they do is they share data with Google or DeepMind, and that could let Waymo riders receive ads for, say, Pixel phones in cars. Um, and that blurs kind of consent lines. So imagine this. Imagine Gemini AI suggesting a restaurant based on your in-cab reaction to passing it. Like, that's nuts. I'm sorry. That scares me. So they do have an opt-out, which is a start. But if you look at the data, 80% of users never adjust default settings. So if riders feel watched, I think Waymo does risk becoming the creepy taxi, which is a reputation that could stall the adoption of this technology. What do you think about that?
Well, we've proven time and time again you're being spied on at all aspects of your life. Like, I'm sure right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 cameras pointed at me. Only one is supposed to be on, but who knows, right? So this is not surprising. It just becomes like people need to realize that these companies are not your friend. They're watching everything you do. And what does this mean? What does the internal cameras mean? Never mind to advertising. What does it mean? Are they going to give it to the insurance company? They want to analyze that minute of video before you crash. Did you look away for a second? Did you do this? Did you do that? And great, maybe that's great, but for most people, okay, so if you had anything in the car that might have been a distraction, if you had a kid in the backseat that just made a noise, even though you were focused, all of a sudden they say that's what caused it, it's your fault or whatever. There's some stuff going on there. What about insurance? If they're watching you and they're watching your fast food and they know what you eat and they're watching you eat it and how you do it, are they feeding that to your insurance company from a health insurance perspective? Your cholesterol, this guy eats out too much. Like, it's not just the stuff that you think about, right? It's all this other stuff that they know what brands you like. Are you drinking Starbucks coffee, Tim Hortons, Dunkin' Donuts, the brand of clothes you wear, what you talk about? So yeah, it's scary. Like, and what are you going to do about it?
Yeah. It's scary. Like they could see that you're inebriated maybe, and then your company you work for could find out, and then you get in trouble. The one thing too is that when it comes to data, and I'll give Tesla this for one thing, even though they're horrible at so much, but they're apparently Tesla's cabin data stays local, whereas Waymo's goes to the cloud. So this isn't really just a technical difference; it's a philosophical one. Whereas Waymo prioritizes AI progress, Tesla leans more towards privacy. If they actually do, I can't trust anything that is said about Tesla nowadays. I don't know. But yeah, so one thing to note when it comes, like, ignoring the snitching side of things, there was some market research that was done. And so brands that use AI personalization, they saw a 40% higher click-through rate. But again, they struggle with data ethics, right? So it's interesting. It's scary. I'm worried. I was all for jumping into one of these, like even from the early start, but now I'm second guessing it.
Yeah, if they can do this, we talked about PhotoBucket taking your retina scans and fingerprints or whatever they possibly can and selling it to whoever when you upload photos. There's no reason they couldn't do the similar thing here if the cameras were high resolution enough. So you have to start thinking about what it is. Do you really want them to give you advertising on this? Do you really want the advertising on the radio to change to something you were talking about based on what you looked or what you said, or, to really start, aren't we inundated too much already? That we've lost, a lot of people have lost control in North America. What percentage of people are obese? Don't get me wrong, I'm one of them. But my point being is, if you turn on the radio, it's eat, buy, eat.
Yeah.
We got weight and debt problems. Like, so getting those to be more effective, great from a business perspective, because now you've got a new way, a new direct advertising, and why not jump on it if you're trying to get your stuff out there? It's a very interesting revenue stream for them, but they're not going to just stop at advertising. We all remember, or maybe we don't, and need a reminder of the stories about Uber tracking all the politicians and all the stars, and they know who was fooling around with who and who got where, and they were all, there was a big video of someone following some star home on the big thing at there. So this stuff kind of goes on because your data is not secure, and because when you're in that environment, you have more access than you possibly should for most of these things, especially for smaller companies that have grown and grown and grown fast. They haven't really thought about security from the ground up, especially if you're trying to take all that data and train your AI. So I'm curious about where this is going to go. I'm curious as to, what does this mean for all the contracts in the US? And this is another part of data security. Are we going to see European do a GDPR thing, but for this kind of stuff, because more and more people are collecting it?
That brings up another point too, is like, how are they going to get away with this with GDPR in Europe?
This is what I'm saying. So it'd be interesting to see, but they've got, they've grown impressively. The operational footprint with over 200,000 paid rides taking place weekly across 4 metropolitan areas: Los Angeles, San Francisco, Phoenix, and Austin. Their expansion plans are ambitious, with Atlanta market entry in 18 months, Miami next year, and Washington, D.C. scheduled within the next couple of years. So they're really growing. So it'll be interesting to see. And if they get this extra revenue from ads and stuff, I'm sure they'll just grow faster.
For sure. Yeah.
So let us know what you think. Are you worried about this increasing loss of privacy that is striking everyone, and what they're going to do with that data? And do you think the government or someone else needs to step in and start figuring out this needs to be controlled and locked down? Love to hear your thoughts. Let us know. Oh, yeah. Okay, let's get rid of this one. Oh, I lost my share.
Oh.
No big deal. Okay. So we've talked about brain-computer interfaces before, specifically mostly the Neuralink processor, but there are a few others out there. But we've been focused on that when they came to Canada and what that, because it's getting all the press. So recent experiments, now we have a two-way computer brain interfaces that's allowing paralyzed limbs to feel touch again. Yeah. This is crazy, John.
This is cool. Yeah, it's not just about moving a hand anymore. It's about feeling the hand move, if I can put it that way. So there's this bidirectional loop, and what it does is it mimics natural sensory motor integration. So it allows, so I think the guy his name was Ian. He could distinguish between a grape and a cotton ball after years of paralysis. So it's not just about the BCI, the hardware itself, but it's also about AI and machine learning. So the machine learning doesn't just decode intentions, it predicts errors. So if the system detects a mismatch between intended grip strength and sensory feedback, it will adjust the stimulation in milliseconds. Like, put it into perspective, like an autonomous car correcting its steering. So the one thing, though, about this is that adding sensory feedback requires about 10x computational power than a motor-only system. So there's this new chip. I think it's Chisunga's chip. It's a neuromorphic chip it can mimic brain architecture. We can cover it another time, but that is essential to avoid lag and maintain that connection so that it's usable, right? So this is really cool. What do you think about this? Is this scary? Is this cool? Or is
It's a
there?
little bit of both. I mean, it's cool because of what they're doing and the practical applications. It was Keith Thomas who was paralyzed in a diving accident in 2020, and now he lifts and drinks from a cup on his own.
Crazy.
You see it in this picture here. I'll try and zoom in a little bit where he's got the device hooked up, and it moves based on his thoughts. So it can move based on, and this is amazing. The two-way thing is great because now you can get the touch feedback, and this is great that the feedback has a result in his ability to feel with his hand, to use those sensations during his movement. He can feel the cup, which is really strange and weird.
Yeah, this is awesome. This is the next step in solving or overcoming paralysis, I think.
Yes, and one I read it here that there's been a couple of cases where they can actually feel when the machine isn't on. So it appears like it's retraining neural bias. Problems with the double neural bias system could potentially treat to help other patients with spinal cord injuries as well as conditions such as stroke. So it feels like it's retraining the brain or whatever to do these things. So it may be a long-term treatment, not just a you need the computer chip forever.
Yeah. So I'll take another approach at this. There's ethical considerations.
Yeah.
So with that, now that BCIs are now capable of transmitting abstract data, so example, temperature and texture, we're definitely entering uncharted territories. So a question to you is, should users download new senses?
Interesting. As soon as you get new senses, it's a whole experience. We feel like we're somewhere between what was that show, The Network, I think, where it might not have been The Network, where everybody was online. It was built in. You were getting ads right in your eye and stuff. And then combine that with Euphoria, and I think that's where we're headed.
Yeah. Are we going to a SaaS model with this? Or a subscription model? Because there needs to be regulatory frameworks, and they're lagging behind this tech for sure, as we've seen with all of these tests that have been going on with BCIs.
Yeah. Researchers observed during the study some spared nerve connections appeared to strengthen, leading to permanent sensory gains, even when the system was disconnected. I just wanted to, rephrase that again. So you're right, but like as soon as I think it goes beyond that. I think it goes beyond, as soon as it's two-way, how do you know what you're feeling is what you're feeling? How do you know you're not being controlled by someone else to feel good, to feel bad, to do, whatever? We're already worked up as a society. As you just turn on the TV, you can see different things going on, but people are up in arms about this or happy about that or what have you. Now have somebody controlling them on a mass level. What was that Neil Stevenson book? I think this is Snow Crash we're talking about right here, right now.
Okay. Yeah. It's scary. I like that. I like where this tech is going. I hope that regulatory bodies catch up and kind of regulate this before it gets too far and they can't go backwards. But I think this is great. I think this is phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, the development of two-way brain interface marks a watershed moment in paralysis treatment by successfully restoring movement and touch sensation in a patient with a severe spinal cord injury. Researchers at Northwell Health Feinstein Institutes have demonstrated the extraordinary potential of the integrated BCI system. This breakthrough combines advanced electrode arrays, AI algorithms, and non-invasive stimulation into a cohesive solution that addresses multiple aspects of paralysis, paving the way for more secure intervention. So from what I understand, it took them a couple of months to get used to the system and to use it well, and the AI is adapting while it's doing it. Fantastic. But as we stand on this brink of incredible breakthroughs in technology and quality of life for several people that could have spinal cord injuries and others, we also have to be aware of the potential impact that we could have over the negative aspects, like we talked about. Advertising, controlling your mood, becoming addicted. Can you start controlling your emotions yourself with your app on your thing? And what does that mean? People get strung out pretty easily on anything. If you can get strung out on your own emotions, that would be interesting. So we'd love to hear your feedback. Is this a dangerous path, or is this a brave new technology we need to be embracing and love the way we're going? Love to hear your feedback. So we're coming up to May, John. We're looking forward to this. Will probably be coming out just before the Futurist Conference and Consensus. I know I'm excited about the Futurist Conference. I put on a great thing. We should be having a Flowgrammer event. If you're learn about AI and automation around the same day, and we'll have an after party during Consensus. So I'm excited about all those things.
Yeah, excited. Excited for Tracy and Laura's event. It's sad that a portion of it had to go to Miami, but excited that they're still keeping it in Toronto. Shout out to Tracy and Laura Leparulo. I've got some office hours at TBDC in the month of May, and shout out to TBDC. They're great. Excited for both conferences for sure.
So if you want to know what's going on at Toronto Starts, we're the largest startup community in Canada. Go to torontostarts.com. There you can go to the Startup Coach site and book a call with me if you want to get unstuck with your business and take it forward. And they'll also have links to our latest startup investor drinks, so you can go to startupdrinksto.com directly and get the latest. We have monthly events with pitching, with investors, with obviously startup founders and ecosystem partners. It's a great time. Always a great time. Come on out for that, and hope to see you soon. And thanks everyone for listening.
Thanks everyone.